you ask the average person what they think of slavery within America, they will probably give you the same answer. In 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by Abraham Lincoln, and slavery was effectively outlawed forever and never existed again in the Western world. Of course, while slavery is no longer technically legal, it still exists in the form of human trafficking within America and the rest of the world, where people are sold as objects for either sexual favors or manual labor. This speech in particular will refer to sex trafficking. Of course, when America tries to have any sort of legislature toward fighting this issue, it generally focuses on taking down the traffickers themselves, the idea of the big bad guy being taken down by traditional American justice. Of course, what we forget is that there are people involved in this. There are victims of these crimes that require rehabilitation of their own, and they have a very specific set of needs. A study of trafficking victims in England by the American Journal of Public Health found that victims on average have a multitude of issues that they have to deal with, such as mental trauma, physical trauma, such as diseases and broken bones, and just not being able to fit in with society, as many of these people are undocumented migrants. So you're either isolated from society for a long time, or you have no idea how American society works. Of course, we hope that there are systems in place to help these people, but we find that overall, the system to help these victims is utterly broken. Of course, to look to see how we can solve this problem, we must look at exactly the problems that exist within this system, the causes behind these problems, and what we can do to change specific legislature and an overall mindset going forward. So there are two main problems you run into regarding victim rehabilitation. One of which is that the healthcare system, which is the main way that victims can be identified in the first place, is lacking. There was a series of interviews for the Health and Human Rights magazine or journal, where 12 victims were interviewed, and they found that throughout their health visits to hospitals, that they were never once questioned by any staff members at all, even if warning signs were in place, such as a trafficker speaking on behalf of the victim entirely, high-risk procedures, repeat visits for stuff like HIV. They were never questioned. Of course, hospitals represent one of the ways that victims can have contact with society. So if these people are not helping, then we're missing a lot of victims that could otherwise be helped. Another problem that we have is that even if you get identified, you're not likely to receive treatment. Miriam Potocki, in her article, A Travesty of Human Trafficking, she found that from 2001 to 2007, only 1,379 people were identified as victims and received rehabilitation, which is an absurdly low number, considering that we are estimated to have around 50,000 victims per year within the United States. In addition, April Rieger, talking about an act called the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which was legislature in 2001 that allowed for victims to get extra rehabilitation programs. Only 228 people received any kind of these rehabilitations specifically made possible by this act. So while it may be written in legislature that these programs exist, there's obviously a disconnect between who's receiving them and if they actually exist. So you may be wondering, why exactly are these people not receiving these treatments? There's two main reasons. One of which is that there's a lack of knowledge within multiple sectors regarding how to deal with these victims. First off, with the healthcare sector, Mary DeChesney found that only 13% of people that she interviewed felt confident that they were able to identify a trafficking victim, and only 3% had any kind of training at all regarding identifying human trafficking victims. So there's obviously a lack of knowledge within all hospitals. In addition, while there is legislature involving trafficking rehabilitation, on local levels, it's basically non-existent. The Government Accountability Agency, watchdog agency of sorts, conducted 32 interviews with law enforcement officials around the country, and they found that only 12 of these officials believed that their area had programs that supported people during the court process, and only 15 of them believed that there were any kind of services available at all, such as mental health or anything you'd expect for these victims. So there's obviously a disconnect. On a broader, more less specific note, another problem is that there is a lack of caring for these victims, and they're treated as criminals as opposed to people that have suffered a tragedy. C.S. Vance, in her 2011 article for Social Research, discusses how in order to receive trafficking benefits, they have to prove that they've been trafficked. So you have to go through, you're constantly doubted. You have to go through police interviews, you have to provide specific evidence that you have been trafficked, etc. And what this happens is that people are constantly doubted, and it's really hard to prove this kind of crime happened. And combine this with the lack of knowledge that exists within these law enforcement officials, generally, a lot of these people are either punished for being prostitutes, even though that wasn't their choice, or they're deported for being migrants. So you have an issue with properly helping these people, and these people are not encouraged to seek help. Now, there are some solutions, both explicit and farther reaching, one of which is we simply need more training. We need although training exists within higher levels of government, such as FBI, lower levels, such as local hospitals and local law enforcement agencies, should have training as far as identifying and helping victims. Because these are the people that are actually going to be seeing these victims, not the higher-ups in Congress. On a larger level, as far as criminal justice goes, we should adopt a human rights mindset. Kelly Highland in 2001 talks about a victim-first mindset where throughout the court system, a person is given protections and support that allows for them to have a voice within the process. Examples include having a coordinator of sorts that will tell victims where they can get help, how they can get help, etc. And providing stuff such as a victim is able to sue their trafficker for emotional damages further down the line. So this gives them a little bit of control back and allows for them to feel like they are not a criminal. They are just someone that has suffered this horrible tragedy. So, of course, in conclusion, we can see that this is an incredibly complex situation that's hard to solve with one specific solution. What we can agree on is that the system is utterly broken in its current state. But if we look at the problems that are underlying it and how we can solve these problems, we can hope that these victims can shed their identity as a grim statistic and become maybe our neighbor or even our friend.